Welcome to All Things Moore County, Moore County's weekly radio show highlighting the many facets of the Sandhills. That includes real estate, lifestyle, community and neighborhoods. And now, from 4 Properties, here's your host, Bill Sahadi.
Good morning and welcome to the talk show, All Things Moore County. Dorothy, I have a chance today to kind of roll back memory lane just a little bit.
Oh, yeah?
And speak with a past client and friend who purchased a home in Whispering Pines right before COVID, I believe.
Right after.
Right after COVID. And 2020, I think. And Lani Bozkurt is my guest. And Lani is a counselor. She is a family dynamics and performance strategist, which is a mouthful.
Yes, it is.
She has over 23 years of experience in organizational leadership, coaching, and conflict. Boy, this is such an intellectual way to say it. Conflict stabilization, working with individuals facing, high pressure situations, including divorce, step family situations. And her background is very varied. It includes experience in negotiating, peace processes, and almost a decade of navigating high conflict situations, both in the custody and legal systems. That's a mouthful. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for coming in to see me. The one thing I asked you when you walked in was how old your daughter was now, because I remember her. You just had her. So she's 6 now.
She's 6 years old now, yeah. She was just 6 months old back then. And so time is flying, not just for you, for me too.
So she's in school?
She is. She's in kindergarten.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
So this was a big year for her.
It is a big year for her, and she's loving kindergarten, and I am very happy that she's loving kindergarten because...
Is she very social?
She has become social. I think kindergarten has really helped her with that, and so that's one of the greatest things about it.
I was very intrigued by the name of your company, your business, Reforged Integrative Consulting Services. Is that?
Yes, coaching and consulting. So I help high performers navigate complex family situations there, such as divorce, high conflict custody, co-parenting, and step-family dynamics, so that they can stay effective both at home and in their careers. And that's what we do at Reforged Integrative.
Yeah. You've got offices in downtown Southern Pines. Mm-hmm. You also do a lot of Zoom meetings. What is it about your background, your military background, that had you evolved into stepping out and doing this on your own?
Yeah, that was a really interesting journey that I couldn't have reversed engineered it to turn out this way if I would have tried by design. It's really just kind of the course of things and how it happened. But years ago, I was actually sent on a special assignment to Africa. I was working on a peace process there with the team and helping to negotiate at the end of a very long conflict there and integrate a rebel group into government. And we were successful at doing that. So I thought, because not just that, but all of the experience that I had in the conflict space and in various ways of, various dynamics around conflict, that I understood conflict very well. And I was dubbed an expert. I was working as an advisor to ambassadors afterwards. And I knew how to de-escalate and bring people to the table and how to find resolution. And I was doing that even with, these are people with deep hatred for each other. So yet we still were able to help them find enough common ground to come to a peaceful settlement.
How does that work?
Well,
deep hatred for each other. How do you mitigate that and get to the other side?
A lot of it is about finding common ground. What does everybody want, and how can we move forward for that?
Okay.
And that is one of the key pieces. But that's an entire
Another
hours
show.
and hours, right? Exactly. But really, at the same time, though, when I came back, things had been brewing at home. And my husband and I, we found ourselves, me as a step parent, in a high conflict custody and co parenting situation. And I was, even with all of the expertise that I thought I had in conflict and the understanding that I had, I still was found, I was completely unprepared for this.
Okay.
And it just
It was
completely.
yours is a second marriage.
Right. My husband and I, we married in 2019.
Right.
Right. And he had 2 children from a previous relationship,
Right.
a previous marriage. And then we also had a baby together
Right.
later on in 2020.
Right.
So I had training and experience to navigate this conflict and, between massive armed groups and, entire multiple countries that are being affected by this. But it wasn't enough to disarm the conflict inside one single tiny family unit.
Okay.
And I couldn't make sense of that.
Was part of it an acceptance of you as a stepmom? Or what? I mean, blending. So many families are blended.
Right.
I think the number is like 40% or something.
Yes. So there's 40% of all families are blended in some form or fashion.
Right.
So that can mean that there are that there are kids from previous relationship, that one or both of the new parents that the married couple are bringing into the family, or that they're just having kids on their own as well as having kids from a previous relationship. So they're blended in some form or fashion. And that's 40%, and then 70% of those don't make it.
Right.
So there's a huge strain on second families that the traditional family dynamics and therapy and things of that nature don't always speak to the strain that is on second families. Some of it doesn't relate.
So I'll make a statement as a layman,
Mm-hmm.
which I can do because it's just me. The way we are raised in this country, our expectations about what makes us happy is all skewed. It's wrong. We have unrealistic expectations. We're not trained to deal with conflict. We just think you get married, the happy ever after. It's ridiculous. Our world is in such a crazy place we are today, and ever since the COVID. But people have these glorified expectations.
Yeah.
And when reality hits in, all of a sudden, people aren't happy. And I'll say one more thing and I'll shut up. Happiness is a silly goal. It is a silly goal because happiness is a momentary thing that
Yes.
you get in a relationship where you have moments of them, but you're working together, and sometimes just being constructive and being proactive
Right.
should be the goal.
Yes, exactly.
And I'll shut up now.
No, that's very insightful because a lot of it does come from a false sense of expectations. It's a little bit of a honeymoon period that can go on in some creating of a new family, and not all of it's wrong. Not all of that's wrong, but nobody really is prepared for what they're going to face.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not a ton of it, back then, at least. It's gotten a lot better 10 years later, but there's not a lot of resources that are available to help somebody prepare for something like this. And, so I made it my mission to find a better way. And if there wasn't one, if I couldn't find one, then I was going to create it. And at first it was purely personal.
Yep.
But over time, my husband and I started to see that there were so many other people who were going through similar situations. And the reason, or one of the reasons why it's so difficult, is because they're operating inside a situation that does not respond to logic. It does not respond to fairness. And it doesn't respond to good intentions. And that is not something that people are usually prepared for.
How old are your stepchildren now?
My stepchildren now are tweens and teens already. Yes.
Well, through adolescence?
Yep,
Okay.
absolutely.
Which is, even in a perfect family, quote unquote, what a tough time that is anyway.
Yeah, that's so true. And one of the big things in step family dynamics is the age of the children, because approaches that somebody should take are going to be wildly inappropriate if you're not taking the age of the family into consideration, and as well as so many other variables, which is why it's really important to have somebody help you navigate this if you're not going to wind up spending, years in research like I did.
Wow. So your practice right now, is the majority of it around family dynamics? Divorces, step family situations?
Yes, it is largely around family dynamics, but I also take performance into major consideration. That is a huge part of what I also address, because high performers, that's the kind of the audience that I tend to lean towards heavily. They traverse adversity very differently. They have a high capacity for pain and discomfort, and they tend to endure things way too long before they seek support. And sometimes it's not that it's too late, it's just that now it's turned into a new situation. Mm-hmm. And so high-performing people, they're extremely capable, but the strategies that make them successful in business and in leadership, they often don't work in emotionally charged family systems.
What are the gender differences in performance? Women and men, there've got to be some distinct differences in how they deal with performance.
Yeah, I actually haven't looked too directly at specific differences between men and women in performance. I think that can vary a lot depending on a field that they're in. For example, coming from a military background, there's certain aspects of that experience that are very similar across high performers, but where their gender will still take a role in that.
Okay. The divorce rate is not going down, and it seems to be fairly prevalent. In my business, I get to see it in real estate often over the years. And it's probably too convenient to just say, well, it's because of the high military population.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily true, is it? There are a lot of other reasons as well.
Yeah, I mean, military life does have its own strains, but it's not just military life. A lot of it can be more rooted in high performance. So whenever somebody, and you're talking about divorce, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah.
Yeah, so whenever somebody's investing a lot into their career, that can sometimes just cause a strain inside of a family. Mm-hmm. And so there is a way to balance that, and I talk people through a lot of how to balance the demands and the pressure, because they often feel like they're failing. If I'm doing well in one area, I'm not doing well in the other, things like that.
Right.
And so we talk a lot about those dynamics. Mm-hmm.
We also have a lot of single moms around, and they have some performance anxiety. Mm-hmm. And I have witnessed some of it firsthand recently, where you have an overperformer as a single mom based out of fear, and yet then you have perhaps issues with the child who doesn't feel like they're getting enough attention. They don't understand that the single parent is working maybe a little fear-based to provide and to do the role of both father and mother.
Yeah, absolutely. And those types of struggles and challenges, I think that they can exist for men and women.
Yeah.
You hear about things from single moms a lot because they're a little bit more represented in this space.
Yep.
But those same feelings eventually come around regardless of if you're a mom or a dad or a stepmom or a stepdad. And so, the other things, they're used to being able to solve problems through logic and effort, and it's sometimes working harder doesn't always lead you to a better outcome. If in the case that you're talking about, that working harder can burn you out so much that you have nothing left to give. And so the next time your kid's like, oh,
right.
Mommy, I'm hungry, or Daddy, I'm hungry, you're like
Right.
about to tear your hair out.
Right.
Because we're not taking care of the whole system.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Fascinating conversation. We're going to come back in the second set. Lani Bozkurt is the guest for the entire hour. Reforged Integrative is the name of her company. This is All Things Moore County. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the second set of All Things Moore County. Lani Bozkurt is a family dynamics and performance specialist, strategist, talking about family issues. It's not just family issues, performance issues, but we were finishing the first set, Lani, talking about family issues. And when you are working with couples, either step family issues or marital unhappiness and divorce issues, are you working with couples, or are you working with individuals from the couple situation?
Yeah, so it's typically individuals, and to be clear, I don't help couples who are contemplating going through divorce. I come in after divorce has already been initiated. So they're either in separation, and in which case I would be dealing with the individual to navigate some of the other things that come after that, such as co-parenting or custody situations or blending a step family if they're that far down that road. So I have not worked with couples yet. It's something that I'm not opposed to doing in the right context, but to be, it's just full transparency, though. I work with all types of parents: moms, dads, step parents, grandparents, even those in parental roles who have no legal rights.
Right.
And I do tend to speak directly to the dad audience pretty heavily. I have dozens of reasons for that, but just a few of them are the data shows that that dads, or men generally, are less likely to seek support.
Right.
So that's one of the main reasons. They are not going to come to that earlier on their own, very, very commonly.
On their own, right.
And another reason is, even if they do, they're very under-resourced in the context of high conflict custody and high conflict family dynamics. And the legal system, while it's created to be equitable to both parents, individuals operating within it still have their own individual biases sometimes. And so that's very difficult for a father to navigate when the system can be somewhat adversarial, not always, but it can
towards
be.
The male.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
They can be easy targets for false allegations.
Right.
That can happen.
Right.
It's not to say that any of this can't happen to both sides either.
I understand.
And conflict often overshadows their parenting role in the child's life. So in that, what I'm talking about is kind of a sense that dad's not that engaged.
Right.
But if a father is engaged, and can be a framing thing, his role shouldn't be diminished. But it can be if they aren't prepared for what they're up against with all of this. So I'm talking to the engaged fathers out there, but we have to really stop confusing imperfect with uninvolved. Two very, very different things. So a father can make mistakes. He can work long hours.
But still be involved.
He can go on a business trip or even be deployed if he needs to be.
Right.
And he can parent the child very differently than a mother might. And still be deeply engaged in his own meaningful way.
I understand.
And deeply necessary and deeply stabilizing in his child's life. And that's missed a lot.
So I agree, there's probably a bias against men in situations. I know a situation now where a single mom that I know is going through starting a custody battle, and from what I understand, and just that all the financials fall on her, not on him. He doesn't participate financially at all. And
so he's not the quote unquote breadwinner.
He is not,
right
at
so,
all.
Yes, and this is a great example of how every single situation is very different.
Okay.
But please, keep going.
Yeah. So from what I understand, there's absolutely no financial support. There's one child involved under the age of 10, and I see the stress of the anticipation of the court hearing coming up. From her point of view, I don't know him, but I think people sometimes make a quick snap judgment. Well, if he's not financially contributing, how is it even an issue? People can jump to conclusions.
Absolutely.
But he could still be engaged
Yes.
with the child.
Yes, absolutely. And on the other side of the equation, in that type of situation, whoever the breadwinner is, or if it's both parents, sometimes this is where some of the high performance stuff comes in. That very job or career that they have can be used against them in litigation because, this parent's not available enough. They spend so much time on their career, but at the same time, that career is what is paying to support the children and to sometimes support the other parent to some degree. So, and that'd be more for an alimony case, not for child support, but that's still something that comes up on the tail of a divorce. And so it's kind of this double-edged sword where they can feel like, they're up against a rock and a hard place. And these are very difficult things to navigate.
So when you're speaking with one of the couple, let's say the male, is your goal to help them get a better big picture understanding of a situation so that they can, or to be a second, a neutral a listener, a sounding board that can help them better understand their situation, get outside of themselves?
There are aspects of some of that may be useful tools, but really, I'm not their mediator or their therapist.
Right.
And I do help them find good assets for those different roles.
Okay.
But I work in strategy.
Okay.
Largely.
Okay.
It's let's not make the mistakes that you can be avoided. And what do we need to do in a situation that has your unique variables?
The working strategy and trying to give people a blueprint for getting from here to there, is that perceived by a lot of individuals in a couple relationship as this isn't fun, this isn't easy, I don't want to do it?
Meaning like to do the
too much work.
Well, I don't think so. I think that if a parent is this engaged in wanting to make sure that they're a part of their child's life, they've kind of gone to a point of like, I'm in it and I will do whatever is necessary.
Okay.
And if it's too much work, then that's usually not the person that is seeking me out in the first place, or even the person who is trying to assure their position in their child's life, their role and their bond in their child's life.
And most of these people that you speak to come to you after the fact of a divorce or a separation agreement has been signed, not before.
Not before, right?
So I do have to ask, how do they know how to connect with you? How do they know how to find you?
Yeah, that's what we're working on right now.
Okay.
I haven't done like a full marketing launch yet.
Okay.
I've done a soft launch, and that was just in March.
Okay.
But prior to that, people were finding me through other step parenting networks and things of that nature online. But I haven't done anything in the local area yet, or much in the local area yet, and that's what I'm working on now.
Okay. So you have really you open up a beautiful website that it's newer, but at least it starts to invite people to find you. But how do some of these people know they have issues if they're after the fact? aside from the fact that some might be resentful or some might be angry, how do they know that they even have issues that need to have strategy conversations about?
Yeah, they usually don't. And so that's one of my goals, is to try and reach people earlier in their experience, because this exists on a spectrum. You know, you start in the beginning and things are going a certain direction, and high performers especially tend to really believe that they've got this, because they do in so many other areas of their life. That's successful for them. And so it's often not until things have started going so wildly out of control, or they're unraveling on the inside, that then they might be looking for more resources. What can I do differently? What else is out there? It's typically in a little bit more of a panic state versus a getting ahead of things state.
You made a statement the other day. You made a statement that said irrational actors do not respond to logic. But isn't your strategy to provide logic to their thinking?
Well, not exactly, because this system doesn't really respond to logic very well.
Okay.
So, are we needing to take a break? Is that
No,
okay?
no, we're good.
Sorry. So, you can't out-strategize a dysregulated system either.
Okay.
So a lot of times, trying to think of
Yeah.
an example, but strategy really needs to come last.
Okay.
So we're going to work on shifting state and their story before we even
Their
get
story.
to
Everyone-
strategy.
Okay.
You know?
Okay.
And what I mean by that is, so it would be very common for somebody come into this, especially if they've been in a high conflict situation for some time, and now it's kind of gotten a little bit wild and crazy, maybe even.
Right.
And so it'd be very common to come in thinking, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is even happening. I'm going to lose my kids. What if I lose my kids? That's a very real feeling. And so the story that they're telling themselves about that is coming from a state of this overdrive. There's a sense of urgency. You are under stress, pressure. You might have some irritation going on. You're still functioning, but you're a lot more reactive and a lot less precise in this state.
Right.
So the strategy that you're going to come up with is going to be very different in that state than it would be if you were to shift your state first. So there's 3 states. You can be online, in overdrive, or offline. And overdrive we just explained. Offline would be depressed, maybe a little apathetic. It's very numb, foggy, disconnected. That's when you're kind of in blah.
Right.
And that's offline.
Right.
But if you're online, this is where you're clear, you're steady, you're in control of your responses.
Right.
And that's the state we want to be in for our decisions. And so the rule that I have is one rule: you don't try to solve any problems unless you're online.
So if people are reactive, they're
Yeah.
harder to reach.
Very much so. And they're typically going to make decisions or react in a
On
certain
emotion.
way that's going to jeopardize their outcomes.
Exactly.
And so if we can shift that state and then shift the story as well, because in an online state, you might actually come up with a story, let's say, that's a little bit different. It could be, this is really hard, because it is.
Yes.
That's real.
Yes.
Because we're not trying to tell ourselves lies. We're still
Yes.
dealing with reality here. So this is really hard for both me and my kids and
Yes.
everyone involved.
Wow.
And I'm prioritizing my bond with my kids. And you come up with that instead. Now your strategy is very, very different from a mindset of fear of losing your children versus the one that you develop from the framing of protecting and building your bond with your kids.
Right.
And the outcomes are going to be very different.
Right. Okay. Okay. We're going to come back in set 3. The time is going too fast. Lani Bozkurt is our guest, and this is All Things Moore County. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our final set of All Things Moore County. Reforged Integrative. I love that name. Lani Bozkurt is the owner and the counselor and the coach. and the 23 years of experience that she's had in organizational leadership and conflict stabilization has sort of brought her to a place today that mirrors the world we live in and the situations that arise. One of the big differences, Lani, is when you were in the military, even before that, growing up, social media was not the presence that it is today. And there is so much, when I say information, I also mean misinformation.
Yeah.
At the same time, people they get their feedback from their computers, from their social media sources, and they get fed a constant daily stream of stuff. And a contention I would make is that stuff keeps people isolated. It keeps them where they're trying to better themselves, but they're trying to do it on their own, and they lose grip with reality. And you have to probably compete with all that information, don't you?
Yeah, to some degree. I mean, I don't really look at it as competition. Unfortunately, it's just really more like a misinformation campaign that you're kind of up against, maybe not competing with, because that tends to be the first place that people do look, and whatever information that they're saturating themselves with will influence their decisions and their behaviors oftentimes. And so, because they're going to be like, well, this was recommended, or I didn't have this idea before. And so it seems enlightening, and it can be very, very misguided. So that there's a lot of noise out there. Coaching spaces, influencer spaces,
self-help books by the yin yang.
Right,
I mean, crazy.
Absolutely. And there are aspects of some of that are very helpful. But it's difficult to cut through all the noise and find the ones that are reputable. And looking for which ones are backed by research, but then knowing how to evaluate research and what's the methodology that was used to come to those conclusions. Was that, adequate or not? And so it's a difficult thing to navigate on your own. It really is.
Yeah. We, in our business, in the real estate business, I always say no two transactions are ever the same. The dynamics are always different.
I'm going to steal that.
But it's true.
It's so true. Yeah.
Right? No two transactions are ever the same. And we have to be ready to pivot to be able to speak to other people's listening.
Yeah.
Right? And sometimes we miss it. And if we miss it, we're going to wind up going down the wrong road.
Absolutely.
But if we hear it, we have the ability to try to help people get from here to there.
Yeah.
In that regard, you're doing the same thing. You made mention of it twice, that each individual brings a different set of circumstances to the table. So there's no set preformed
framework or
syllabus that you
There's
can
not.
use.
Mm-mm.
So you have to be an expert in being able to speak to other people's listening.
Yes, and there are a lot of, whether they're coaches or whatever their title might be, who do use whether it's a framework or offer a blueprint, or here's your if A then B, just kind of resource or guide. And there can be aspects of some of that do have broad application. So I'm not dismissing all of it, but that's where, again, misguided things can happen, because if your situation doesn't have the right variables being taken into account, you're going to be on the wrong path, just like you said. And that does take a trained eye to find that.
So that that makes me think that mission number one for you is being able to better manage people's expectations than the ones that they come to you with, especially if they're off the rails.
Absolutely. I think that when people are in this, it's very easy to be in that overdrive state that I mentioned, because there is a very urgent sense of what's going on. I can't believe this person just did this, and this is what's happening with my kids. And there is that sense of urgency, and that urgency is very valid. At the same time, their expectations can be things like, I just want the other person to go away, or I just want this to all stop. And so that evolves over time, but there's a path to get there. And the expectations that somebody has in the beginning, they will have completely different expectations after even just a few sessions oftentimes. Yeah. Because it starts to turn on a light bulb about what the outcomes will be with the expectations that they have, and if they keep going down the path that they're on.
Emotion,
and usually that's enough.
Emotion is not their friend.
Not in these contexts.
Right.
Yeah.
Not at all.
No.
And you have to separate the emotion from the thought process, because you know that old expression, don't ever make a decision when you're angry.
Right.
And don't say anything until you can get to a calmer place. And we've all been guilty of doing that.
Yep.
Wishing we could retract things, because so much of the disenchantment that people feel is emotion-based, not logic-based.
Yes, exactly. And, I didn't get here because I didn't make these mistakes myself. There's also that, right?
We're human.
And so we have that experience. But with the state of the emotion, it's kind of, you learn that this is a skill and it has to be practiced. And if you're not aware of these things and bringing them back to constant awareness, you're not going, when you reach for these skills, they're not available to you.
Right.
So it is a practice, and that comes with time.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I've been on this earth a little longer than you, and I can tell you firsthand, I am so tired of learning. I am just sick of it. I thought I was going to be done when I got out of college. It never, ever stops. You're always learning, and you're always
evolving.
Yeah,
right?
evolving.
You have to.
I mean, I need a pair of track shoes. I mean, I've been doing it for so long. People may get confused by the legal aspects of the conversations you have with them, because it's not you're not serving the role of an attorney, and when they hear the word legal, I think they have a preconceived notion about what that is. But how does that? How do you bring that into the conversation?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm not an attorney. I don't, pretend to be one. I am a certified divorce specialist, but that's just a certification. And I want to make sure that I understand who somebody is already working with as their attorney, if they have one or if they don't, just kind of where they are in that legal landscape. If they have a case, what the status of that case is. But really, a lot of what I'm advising somebody on is not like their legal strategy. That's something that they should be talking to their lawyer about. But there are some other things. People tend to make some very expensive mistakes, especially in the beginning when they're working with a lawyer. They might go into their lawyer, and again, the same set of expectations that we just talked about. They might have those walking into a room with their lawyer, and they want to tell the lawyer all the things and ways that this person has wronged them, and it could take a lot of time. And that the lawyer is on a 6-minute timer, and every 6 minutes you're getting billed for everything that the lawyer is doing.
Right.
In the lawyers are, it's not that they are trying to, do anything malicious. It's very open that this is what you're being charged for. But people forget because they're in such an emotional state.
Right.
And the lawyers may or may not have been through their own custody situations, even though this is their professional area of expertise. So they might not understand some of the emotional things that are going on. And you're their client. If it matters to you, they will probably include it or entertain it because they want to make sure that the client is satisfied. But over time, there can be resentment that builds up whenever you get that bill and you're like,
yep,
we spent all that time and none of this has changed.
Right.
But it's an expectation situation. And I can talk to somebody about how to use those times with their lawyers in a way that can best serve them.
Okay, that in itself, so you become like an efficiency expert.
Yeah, I've never heard it that way, but that kind of makes sense.
Well, I mean, yeah, there is resentment, I think. Divorce and custody issues become very expensive.
So expensive.
And you've got to think that so many people are primed to leave the situation with resentment.
Yeah.
Either, no matter which side of the decision they are on, and the financial aspect of it can cause a lot of permanent anger.
Yes, it's a huge strain. The situation is extremely costly.
Yeah.
It's costly of your time.
Yeah.
It's costly of your sanity.
Yeah.
It's costly of potentially your relationships, such
Yeah.
as your bond with your kids, or if you're getting burnt out, focusing in the wrong direction, efforts on something very negative.
Yeah.
There's not a lot left
Yeah.
for the positive.
Yeah.
And so it's very expensive. And then you put your finances on top of that expense
Yeah.
as well.
Right.
And now the stress is just compounding.
So there are a lot of conversations that you can have with people and offer them through the process a different perspective, hopefully, as you go through the process. And if people who are listening do want to reach out to you, tell me how they will get in touch with you.
Yeah. I mean, if you're somebody or someone close to you is in something like this, you do have some options. I want to really encourage people to use the resources that are available to you. I'm always happy to help you find resources that are right for you.
Right.
If you don't have the time for that in-depth research on your own. And I just also want to make sure that people going through this understand that they're not crazy,
Right.
That they haven't messed it up too much or beyond repair, and that they're not the only ones going through this. And so there is a more effective way to navigate this. You can get an expert in your corner who understands your unique situation, not just your legal case, or happy to schedule a complimentary consultation. You can find me at reforgedintegrative.com, and I'll get you pointed in the right direction, the direction that seems fitting for you.
And your hours, you see people day and evening?
Yeah, I can.
By appointment?
It depends on the client's needs, yes.
And
I try to work with them as much as possible on that.
Do you start with Zoom meetings, or is that something that you do after the first or second consultation?
It oftentimes depends on the client's comfort level and their schedule. So if they don't want to commute or they can't, we can do Zoom, or we can meet locally. And I do like to at least meet locally once with somebody in the beginning so that we can, have that in-person interaction.
Okay. And that website is reforgedintegrative.com?
Correct. That's the one, Bill.
That's your email.
That's the email.
Perfect. And you serve Moore, Harnett, Hoke, Cumberland, Wake, and Fort Bragg.
Yes, I actually will serve the entire area, but locally, and just kind of making it known that there is a space, in the area where we can meet in person if that's your preference.
Great stuff. Just in having this conversation with you, it brings up thoughts in my head of people that I know who are going through different situations that something like this would benefit them. And you just know in your everyday life, it's a lot more people than people realize.
It is, and especially with high performers, because they tend to carry this load very, very quietly.
Right.
And, outwardly they're still doing well and
Yeah.
maybe crushing it in their career until they're not, because the stress gets so high. And I just really would like to reach people before they get to that point.
Lani Bozkurt, thank you so much for coming in. And I do hope people reach out to you. And this was really a very dynamic conversation that you had.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank
Happy
you.
to be here.
It's good to see you.
You too.
This is All Things Moore County. Everybody have a great week. Thank you.